Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to be taking a deep dive into support for nurse leaders.
Yeah, support. It's so important.
It really is. And we've got some great material to work with today. Excerpts from Support, Building Resilience and Guidance for Nurse Leaders Through Mentorship and Resources.
Great piece.
Yeah. And one image that really stuck with me from the reading was they talked about support as a lifeline, almost like, a neon life preserver.
Oh, yeah.
I thought that was really powerful. And it's so true, right? I mean, being a nurse leader, especially these days, it can feel like you're constantly navigating a storm.
Absolutely. And one thing the source material really highlights is that a lot of nurse leaders, they end up feeling isolated and overwhelmed.
Mm.
And, that can have some serious consequences.
Yeah, and it's not just about the individual leader burning out, right? It's like there's this ripple effect. Have you ever been on a team where the leader was just clearly struggling?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It impacts everything, Morale takes a hit, teamwork suffers, and ultimately patient care can even be affected.
True.
So, it's not just some nice perk. Support, I think, is really fundamental to effective leadership. Would you agree with that?
I completely agree. The research backs that up. When leaders have support, they're more resilient, more engaged, and that creates a better environment for everyone. And the article really breaks it down into, I'd say, two key areas: mentorship and resource allocation.
Okay, so let's start with mentorship. When you hear that word mentorship, what comes to mind for you?
It's a word that gets thrown around a lot, but I think sometimes it can feel a little vague.
I agree, yeah.
But think about it in terms of, specific skills. Things like delegation, conflict resolution, even just navigating the politics of a hospital. These are things a mentor can really help you with. It's not just about general advice. It's about really targeted skill development, coming from someone who's been there, someone who's been in your shoes.
I like that. Yeah. It's not just about having a cheerleader. It's about having someone who can actually help you level up your leadership skills. And the source emphasizes that these mentorship programs, they shouldn't just be for new leaders, right? What are your thoughts on that?
I think that's a really important point, because even the most experienced leader can benefit from a fresh perspective,
Yeah.
And that's what a mentor can offer. Imagine you're dealing with some complex ethical dilemma, maybe involving patient care or resource allocation. A mentor can be a sounding board. They can help you analyze the situation, consider different viewpoints, and that can help you make a more informed decision.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's like having a trusted advisor outside of your immediate situation who can
Right.
offer you some objective insights so you
That's
don't get stuck in a silo. Okay, so let's shift gears a little bit and talk about resources. Now, this one might seem a little more straightforward, right? More staff, better tech, a budget that actually works.
Right.
But I have a feeling there's a lot more to it than just wishing for a magic money tree.
There is.
Yeah.
And this is where, your leadership skills really come into play. Because it's not enough to just say, hey, we need more. You have to become an advocate. You have to think strategically. How can you demonstrate the impact that inadequate resources are having? What kind of data can you gather to present a compelling case to, well, whoever holds the purse strings? This is where effective leadership really intersects with resource allocation.
So it's almost like you have to, build a mini business case, right?
Exactly.
Show the return on investment, how investing in your department will ultimately benefit the whole organization, whether it's, better patient outcomes or reduced staff turnover or, whatever the specific benefits might be.
Exactly. And don't forget the intangible resources, too.
Oh,
Professional development opportunities for your team,
yeah.
access to mental health support, even just fostering a culture of collaboration and open communication. These things might not have a specific dollar amount attached to them, but they're absolutely crucial for creating a healthy and sustainable work environment.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So we've got these two pillars, right? Mentorship to sharpen our skills and then resources to equip us for success. But how do we actually make this happen? What are some concrete steps we can take? Should everyone listening be running out right now to find a mentor?
That's a great question, and it leads perfectly into what we're going to talk about next.
Okay, so it feels like we've laid out the what,
Right.
mentorship,
Right.
resources, but now we got to figure out the how.
And how? Yeah.
And our source material kind of hints at something here, I think. Because in the next article in this series, it's all about communication,
Interesting.
which makes me think, maybe communication isn't just one more thing on the to-do list, right?
Right.
Maybe it's actually the thread that connects everything.
Oh, I like that. I like that a lot, the thread. Because How many times have we seen great initiatives just completely fall apart because of poor communication?
Oh, all the time.
Or how many times have we felt like we really needed support, but we didn't know how to ask for it?
Yeah. You almost hit a wall.
Right.
You have the knowledge, you have the passion. But if you can't communicate your needs effectively or advocate for your team or build those relationships, the whole support system just kind of breaks down.
Exactly. And you know what's so interesting is the source material doesn't give us like a step-by-step guide to communication.
Right.
Not yet anyway.
Yeah.
But I think we can use what we already know about mentorship and resources to kind of start connecting the dots.
Okay. I'm intrigued. So let's take mentorship as an example. It's one thing to have a program in place, but how does communication actually impact how successful that program is? Does it go beyond just, scheduling regular meetings?
It totally does. It totally does. Okay, imagine this. You're a brand new charge nurse.
Okay.
You've been paired up with a mentor, someone more experienced,
Mhm.
and you're in the middle of a staffing crisis.
Oh boy.
But you're hesitant to reach out to your mentor. Maybe you feel like you should have all the answers already,
Mhm.
or you're worried about looking incompetent. And this is where the mentor's communication style is so important.
Yeah, it's not just about being available, right? It's
Right.
about creating a space where the mentee feels comfortable being vulnerable.
Exactly.
Like if the mentor establishes clear communication channels, if they really encourage open dialogue,
Yeah,
then it's easier to ask for help without feeling judged.
absolutely. It's all
Yeah.
about psychological safety.
Yeah.
And, that doesn't just happen automatically.
Right.
It's a very deliberate communication strategy.
Mm.
Things like active listening,
Mm.
asking open-ended questions, validating the mentee's experiences. These are all so important for building trust.
It makes you think about all those times when you've hesitated to speak up, right?
Yeah.
Because you thought, oh, this is probably a dumb question, or I should already know this. But when the other person creates that kind of open atmosphere,
Yeah.
it gives you permission to be human, to learn and to grow.
I love that. Permission to be human.
Yeah.
So true. Okay, so let's flip the script a little bit.
Okay.
Let's talk about resources. We talked about advocating for your team,
Hmm.
about putting together that business case.
Yeah.
But how does communication play into that? Is it all about PowerPoint and budget proposals?
Well, data is definitely important, but there's got to be more to it than that, right? I mean, I've seen so many presentations just fall flat, even when the numbers were solid.
Right.
It's like, how do you communicate in a way that actually resonates with people? How do you get them to not just understand the problem, but to actually feel the need?
You've hit the nail on the head. It's about making that emotional connection. So instead of just saying we need more nurses, what if you painted a picture of what that shortage actually means?
Right.
Share stories of patients who are waiting longer for care,
Right.
or talk about how burnt out the staff is and how that impacts their ability to provide the best possible care.
So it's like storytelling meets data analysis.
Exactly. Exactly.
Weaving those narratives in a way that really highlights the human impact, not just the bottom line. And I'm guessing this goes beyond just formal presentations, right?
Oh, for sure.
It's about building relationships with the decision makers, having those open dialogues throughout the year, not just when you need something.
That's right. It's about positioning yourself as a trusted advisor,
Yeah.
someone who understands the big picture, not just the needs of your specific department.
And that trust that comes from consistent, transparent communication.
Exactly.
It reminds me of that saying, it's not what you say, it's how you say it.
So that's so true.
The same message can be interpreted in completely different ways depending on your tone, your timing, the level of trust that you've already established.
You're absolutely right. And let's not forget about nonverbal communication.
Right.
Your body language, active listening, even just the energy you bring to a conversation.
Yeah.
All of these subtle cues can influence how your message is received.
So we've talked about how communication is key to successful mentorship, to effectively advocating for resources.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything else this magic bullet applies to?
Well, remember how we talked about peer support networks?
Yeah.
Creating those spaces where leaders can connect, share their challenges, brainstorm solutions.
Yeah, it's like a safe haven where you can let your guard down and be real with other leaders who really get it. But how does communication play into making those networks effective?
Okay, picture this. You walk into a room full of your peers.
Okay.
Some of them you know really well. Some are more like acquaintances. How does the tone of the conversation affect your willingness to open up? What kind of communication makes you feel comfortable being vulnerable? What makes you feel like you can trust the people in that room?
That's such a good point. It's about creating an atmosphere where judgment is left at the door,
Yes.
where active listening is the norm, and where everyone feels comfortable sharing their experiences, both the good and the bad, without worrying about, what people will think.
Exactly. And think about the facilitator's role in those networks.
Yeah.
They really set the tone. Are they asking open-ended questions? Are they making sure that everyone feels heard? Or is it more like a one-way information download? Their communication style makes all the difference.
So it's like this ripple effect, right?
Yes.
The facilitator's communication style influences the whole group dynamic, which then affects how supportive the environment is. And that ultimately determines whether it's a truly helpful network or just, another meeting to check off your to-do list.
You got it. And don't underestimate the power of those informal interactions, too.
Oh, yeah.
The quick chats during a coffee break,
Mm.
the check-ins with a colleague after a tough shift. These little moments can be surprisingly meaningful.
It's like those hallway conversations that happen organically in a healthy workplace. Those little moments of connection, even if it's just to vent or to share a funny story, they can be so supportive.
They really can.
Yeah.
And sometimes those moments pave the way for much deeper, more meaningful conversations later on.
So we've gone from these tangible forms of support, like mentorship and resources, to this more intangible element of communication.
Yeah,
And it really does seem like it's the thing that ties everything together.
it does. And that brings us back to that question we asked earlier. How do you think effective communication contributes to a truly supportive environment? We've explored some possibilities here, but now we want to hear from you.
We'd love to get your thoughts on this, but we're just about out of time for this segment. All right, so we're back. And, thinking about everything we've talked about, it really strikes me how communication just keeps coming up.
It does, doesn't it?
It's like
Yeah.
you can have the best mentorship programs, all the resources in the world.
Yeah.
But if you don't have that clear, consistent, thoughtful communication, it all just falls apart.
Yeah, it's the foundation.
Yeah.
And, reflecting on what we've discussed, it's really clear that communication isn't just about conveying information.
Right.
It's about creating a culture, a culture where people feel safe to speak up, to ask for help, to offer support without being judged.
Absolutely. And that kind of brings us back to that question we left you with before the break.
Yeah.
How do you see that link between communication and a truly supportive environment? And we want to hear your experiences, but first, let's just do a quick recap of what we've talked about, just to kind of tie it all together.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah.
So we started by acknowledging all that pressure
Mm-hmm.
that nurse leaders are under,
Right.
pulled in so many directions.
Yeah.
It's no wonder burnout is such a huge problem.
It really is.
And then we talked about how mentorship and having those resources, that can really help protect against burnout.
Right. And mentorship, we talked about it not just as this vague idea, right?
Yeah.
But as a way to build those concrete leadership skills,
Yep.
to work through those difficult challenges with someone who's been there before.
Yeah. And resources we talked about, not just wishing for them,
Right.
but advocating for them strategically, showing the impact that they have on patient care,
Yeah.
on morale, on the overall health of the organization.
Yeah. But what really stuck with me is that realization that communication isn't just another tool in the toolbox.
Uh-huh.
It's like the thing that makes all the other tools work.
It is.
It's how you build trust in those mentorship relationships. It's how you advocate for those resources. It's how you create safe spaces for peer support.
It's about going beyond just giving information and focusing on really building connection and understanding and having everyone working towards a common goal.
Exactly. Okay, so now we want to hear from you. How has effective communication, whether you've been the leader or part of the team, how has it made a difference in your experience at work? Think about those times when someone's communication style really made you feel supported or empowered or just heard.
Yeah. Maybe it was a mentor who really listened to you, created that safe space for you to share your doubts and your worries. Or maybe it was a leader who was able to bring the whole team together through their communication.
Yeah.
Got everyone excited about achieving a common goal.
Or maybe it was just, a colleague who said something encouraging after a particularly rough shift.
Yes.
It's often those small moments,
Yeah.
right, that have the biggest impact.
I agree. And as we wrap up this deep dive, we want to leave you with a challenge. Think about how you can use communication to create a more supportive environment. It doesn't have to be these big, huge things.
Right.
It starts with small, intentional choices. Really listening to your colleagues, showing that you appreciate them, offering support when someone's struggling, just choosing your words carefully to build that sense of trust and respect.
And those small things, they can really make a difference.
They do. They really do. It creates a ripple effect. It helps to build a culture where everyone feels valued, everyone feels supported, and everyone feels like they can do their best work.
So as you go back to your teams, your departments, wherever you're working, just remember how powerful communication can be. And use it thoughtfully, use it to connect with people, to build those bridges, to create that culture where support isn't just a word, it's something that everyone experiences.
That's it. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive.
We hope you found it helpful and keep exploring and keep learning, keep leading.